Hey Darren, welcome to When Spirit Talks.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here, Stephanie. Thank you for having me.
This conversation I think is so important and I'm so excited to dive into it. But first, I want to know how you became this amazing, enlightened spiritual leader and world-renowned speaker.
My goodness. Not an easy question to start with. Well, I mean, it's all because of my husband, really. He's my guru, and he's the one that I actually knew I was going to marry him at the age of 8.
Wow.
And after, marrying him, we just joined forces in this. What happened was after marriage, I knew that my path was something that was, for divine, for God, it was for enlightenment. And so I married him knowing that that was my path. And within a year, I became enlightened because of his blessings and because of his nurturing. And very quickly after that, I started, blessing people and conducting these science experiments myself. And so now I work alongside him and we actually co-lead an organization that really does something incredible and unprecedented that I truly have never heard of and truly doesn't exist anywhere on this planet in science, medicine, anywhere. And it's that we are challenging some of the deepest assumptions that everybody, including science, even alternative modalities that literally everybody holds about reality, about health, about human potential. I am essentially a messenger. I represent an incredible body of work that demonstrates outcomes where conventional and alternative models reach their limits. So, for example, we've increased agricultural yields by up to 500% by compared to any other method out there. And we've improved plant immunity by as much as 600% compared to conventional models. We've improved shelf life by nearly double. Been able to take drug-resistant bacteria that no longer responds to drugs anymore, certain, antibiotics that we have available, like other generations of antibiotics. And we've been able to make those bacteria finally respond to those antibiotics. We've improved cognition and motor function in clinical trials. We've been able to completely eradicate mental and emotional health problems in all our clinical trials. We have seen profound changes in mental, emotional, physical well-being, so many incredible testimonials. And we have literally 6,000 science experiments conducting all of this incredible research in which all we're doing is one thing. We are just changing consciousness. That is
Wow.
literally the only thing we're doing. And what we're saying is consciousness goes even beyond the mind. The mind is actually a byproduct of consciousness. The brain, the physical nature of our reality are all byproducts. They work downstream from consciousness. Consciousness is the DNA of our DNA. You can change consciousness, you can change anything. And we've seen this in non-living materials. We've changed the atom. Science has never been able to permanently alter the structure of the atom. And we've been able to do that by application of these divine blessings that alter the consciousness behind the non-living material. We've been able to apply this literally all experiments. There hasn't been a single one of them that hasn't demonstrated unprecedented outcomes. We're talking 6,000 experiments, life sciences, microbiology, agriculture, biotechnology. We're dealing with bacteria, viruses, fungi. We're dealing with all different types of crops, plants, seeds, fruits. We're dealing with, things regarding human health, clinical trials. We have a lot of preclinical research, things with cancer cells, and we're doing hundreds of experiments on related to agriculture and literally 4,000 experiments on non-living materials. We're able to change the structure of the atom and change physical constants of materials that science has not been able to do till this day. We're changing the laws of physics that science says is impossible. So we are doing something that has never been seen before. We're taking something so abstract that science has never been able to pin down and measure, that has been primarily theoretical and philosophical, with a lot of people who believe in its reality, but never with the scientific proof or demonstration of it. And we've been able to take something that has been so difficult to measure, pin down and prove its existence. And I say our research is truly the embodiment of proof that demonstrates the existence of consciousness as fundamental, that it's the source of our lives, our well-being, our relationships, everything about us. And on top of that, if you can alter it, you can improve all of those things. And it is truly the future of the world, of our agricultural industry, of our technology, of all these different things that we're funding all this research for, and we're missing that one vital link that actually makes all of those things happen. And that's consciousness. We're able to actually measure it and prove it exists for the first time, I'd say. And as a result, we're also proving that God is not faith-based, but fact-based.
Oh my goodness, there is so much to unpack there.
Yeah,
It's so exciting. So I have a lot of questions. Let me see if I
I'm
can start
sure.
with what made you get into the science? Like, what made you want to integrate science with consciousness?
Because it's never been effectively done before.
Mm.
And as a result of that, when you take something that has been so evasive scientifically, because what does science do? Science shows us that something's real, right? Science takes something that we can identify, that, like, how many people in the world, you know, we all reap the benefits of science. We all reap the benefits of technology, of modern medicine. You know, you go to a doctor when you're sick, you're very likely to go to a doctor first than any other place. You might use other things in conjunction with it, but you're always going to focus on a doctor, right? We have a lot of faith in science because it's given us a lot. It's proven its, efficacy in our lives. It's proven its ability to provide us with comfort and technology, advance our human potential, advance all these different things. It's provided food for us. It's literally provided the foundation of our current lives. So you get all these things that are very hard for science to describe, but people know it's real. People can feel it. People know when science doesn't have answers and they have a problem that is impossible to address, right? And that's where all of our clients come to us, really, is where all of these other places have failed to provide or find lasting solutions or anything like that. Is we get a lot of people who are just looking for an answer. They're looking for help and they have not found it anywhere else. And so because of, we could say, religion and spirituality's failure, to properly take what they, preach, so to speak, take it and prove it empirically. We've said that, it's all about faith. It's a very faith-based process. You
Mhm.
have to believe it. You have to, affirm it to be true. You're not trying hard enough. You don't have enough faith, right? So it's become, in the realm of faith, completely devoid of scientific research as well as outcome, because science is also about outcome. So we've removed empirical evidence, we've removed outcome, and it's all been very, faith-based. So all of this began with my husband, like I said. He's the one that really founded this and started all of this, and I just, joined him along the process. But what happened was he began in India, right? He's an Indian man, an Indian guru, and he began his journey in India, and he went through his enlightenment, his awakening in 1995. And so since then, he has been blessing people in India for a long time, and his blessings gave people such incredible outcomes. They completely changed people's health, their relationships, their finances. Because of the outcomes he produced, he was able to gain such a massive following in India, where he had Hollywood producers, he had celebrities, he had, scientists, he had a whole bunch of people who are, very, like, involved, in very reputable parts of, all of Indian culture. So he already had an incredible amount of reputation. He had wealth, he had status, he had, like, name and fame. And so he had created this huge, we could say, reputation in India. And so he's a man of integrity. So he saw all of this and he was wondering, am I, just providing people psychological comfort? Is this placebo or is this actually real? And then he also wondered, on top of that, he was like, why has this been only limited to humans? Right? When people want to transform people, when they want to transform your fate and fortune, change your destiny, give you better quality of life, give you better health, give you just a whole new path in life, change your life. Why is it limited to only human life?
Mm.
So you can imagine the struggle that he also faced, Guruji Trivedi, that he faced when he decided in that moment he was going to leave his status behind. He was going to leave his wealth. He was going to leave his status. He was going to leave his entire foundation he created in India, abandon all of that for the sake of authenticity and integrity. Because of that, he went straight into scientific research. He cut off his hair. He had like beautiful, long, hair, like you can imagine an Indian guru with the long, gorgeous, curly locks, which I fell in love with.
Mm.
He cut it all off. He wore a suit and a tie. He abandoned the saffron robes because science, when you go into a laboratory, when you go to a research institute and you're dressed like that, and
Mm.
you say, I'm going to conduct a blessing, a scientific experiment on blessings and the divine, people laugh in your face. People reject working with you. People say no. And so he really wanted to produce outcome. He really wanted to, see the line and the limitations of what this energy does, what it is, what it's capable of. He wanted to see it applied to not just human, data and psychology, but he wanted to see it applied to like real difficult things that have not been effectively done before. He wanted to take it to non-living materials. He wanted to change things at the DNA level. He wanted to see its effects on animals and plant life. He wanted to seek it with microbes. He wanted to try everything to effectively say, is this real? So that's why we went into the realm of scientific research, is to really affirm, is this real? We've done it for the sake of integrity and also to tell people that the solution is there. And on top of that, this is a long drawn out answer, but on top of that, what we're doing, right, that is like the integrity part of it, but also we've come to a day and age where when we no longer understand the role and effects of consciousness and the presence of God in our lives, what God is and how God actually works, how God is connected to us, all of those things, not just as like, a Christian faith or a Hindu faith or anything like that, but as a scientific reality, as an actual force of life for us. Right? This is something that makes life happen, makes wellness happen. You remove that vital part of our lives, right? You don't nurture it properly. You don't, work with it and evolve yourself with this kind of energy, with this kind of, level of reality, then you actually see regression, which is what we've seen in our agriculture industry. We're
Mm.
seeing like as much as in the late 19 I think 60s or 70s, we've used almost 800% more chemical fertilizer than we ever have at any other point in time in our lives. We've seen, this mental health epidemic, which is like literally over 1 billion people are suffering from mental health crises, and that's only the reported numbers. Right. And then we're talking about something that science can't address. We're talking about something that even though the wellness industry is attempting to address it, we have seen the numbers are only increasing, even though more people are getting therapy, more
Mm.
people are trying drugs, more people are trying other approaches, right? And we see the numbers increasing and mental health getting worse instead of better, which shows that the numbers are rising instead of decreasing in spite of the stigma decreasing.
Mm.
And we're seeing this worldwide. It's proportionately worldwide. It's not
Wow.
unique to like a more materialistic civilization, like a first world country, and not as prevalent in like India, where they believe more in God or religion or spirituality.
Mm.
This is worldwide. This shows that our fundamental understanding of where life comes from, where health comes from, is incorrect, even in religion and spirituality, even in science and medicine, in agriculture. All of these things, we've seen solutions with what we've been able to do. So that is why we're doing it, because we've reached a day and age where it's essential. This is a mandatory thing that we need to take seriously. We need to create a mainstream understanding of the essential, vital essence of this message that consciousness is fundamental. It's not material, it's not chemical, it's consciousness. And
And what is the method that you guys are using? Is it the divine blessings you talked about, and that's
it
what's
is
increasing the
blessing.
numbers?
That is how we raise consciousness. So
That,
the
okay.
actual thing that causes it to happen is the evolution of consciousness, but the way we do that is through the administration of what we call divine blessings or just blessings in general.
Can you talk more about the divine blessings? Like what are they?
So, a divine blessing, now this is where we go into the existence of a God, a creator.
Okay.
Because if we look at consciousness, we understand what we've been able to effectively prove is that consciousness is fundamental. Right. And so if consciousness is fundamental, then you can change cellular, you can change atomic, you can create new materials, you can create new species and environment, you can do all the things that nature does that we're not able to do as a species, right? But nature is able to do, right? Nature created life. We've been not able to create new life forms. We can kind of create alterations a little bit to those life forms, but not create new life forms. Nature can create those new life forms. Nature can change the atom. Nature can do all of those things. Now, what we call this is the consciousness of nature, right? This is the program that nature has. Nature has this inherent ability to do that. That is the program from the consciousness of nature. Everything has consciousness, right? So, in order to have any influence over the things that nature controls, and nature controls everything. You can't go outside of nature. You can't just try it. You can't work against the laws of physics. Try jumping off a cliff. You'll always fall down. You're never going to just suddenly float. Even with the best intentions or the right affirmations, you're not going to float to the sky, right? You're going to fall down. That's the consciousness of nature is gravity will pummel you to the earth, right? So those are like the laws of physics, the laws of nature. Now, you want to influence all of those things, which also means our physical health and well-being, our mental bodies, our emotional bodies. We're talking about everything. All of those things are controlled and operated by nature, right? With your physical bodies, right? You can't suddenly decide you want to have a different body temperature. A good, healthy body temperature is a set temperature or set range. You go above or below that range, you die, you go into a coma, you suffer from hypothermia, brain damage, all those things happen. You cannot sustain that life form. Science has, nature has things very tightly regulated. And the same thing with our lives. We see improvements in some areas, but it's within the set parameters that nature has given. You might not be aware of what those parameters are, but the improvements we've seen by all the modalities and science and medicine we see today is within those set parameters that nature has given us. We can say that's destiny, right? Nature has given us destiny as life forms. So to change that destiny, to alter that programming, you need a consciousness that's beyond the consciousness of nature, that's beyond the bounds of that nature, right? When we get into that, what created nature? Or moreover, what created consciousness? So that's when we go into the realm of the divine. If we understand all the religious textbooks, everything that talks about the origin, like the origin story of life, of the world, of everything, it always talks about God creating something out of nothing, that nothing existed before, and then suddenly God was just like, let's do this, and then suddenly everything existed.
Mm-hmm.
And so that we could say is consciousness. That's how God makes things happen is through consciousness. So consciousness came first, which resulted in our material reality. Consciousness is God's awareness, is God's presence. So you increase and evolve consciousness, you're just increasing more of the grace of God in your life, the presence of God, you can say. It's just more of that presence that makes things happen. So that's why we call it divine connection.
Mm.
Now, the way that we do it is because, just try doing that yourself, right? We see, like, a lot of people pray, a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
follow faith-based practices and a lot of things, and they're not able to make these things happen that, nature can do or nature regulates, right? We haven't seen a lot of that demonstrated. That's why we have not proven it scientifically,
Mm-hmm.
because we've been not able to properly validate something like that or show the mechanism by which that works, right? Now, science believes in consciousness. It doesn't understand how consciousness works because it doesn't really believe in a creator or God per se. Some niche scientists do, but not a lot of them. And then you have religion that believes in God, but doesn't know how God works on this planet, which is why, we're missing that connection that provides outcome for us. And that's consciousness. So that's what we've done is we've provided the link between all three, God, consciousness, and matter or nature. And the way we're able to do that is when consciousness evolves, humans are one of those rare beings on this planet that can evolve their consciousness to unlimited potential, really. And when that happens, their consciousness, and this applies to everybody, everybody can reach this level of consciousness where your consciousness evolves beyond the consciousness of nature. Now, when you're in that state, that's what we call enlightenment, right? Where your consciousness is connected to the creator's consciousness. There's nothing that produces consciousness except God. So you want to affect change to it, you need to have a consciousness that's connected to that consciousness. That's enlightenment. So at that level, then prayer actually gets answered. Prayer actually works, so long as it's reasonable, right? It's not working against God, it's working for God. So when we get to that point, then that consciousness of that individual, we could say they have a divine embodiment or they're connected to that divine consciousness. So now they can kind of work as like a surrogate,
Mhm.
or they can work almost as like a jumper cable, where all we're really doing is we're requesting to the divine from a more evolved state of consciousness, and that request gets answered. And what happens is it's your relationship. It's a relationship between a material, it's a relationship between a plant or a microbe. It's the relationship between the recipient and the God of their understanding, right? Or the God in the form of consciousness. And from that connection, consciousness evolves, and we're able to harness more of the grace of God or the benefits of that connection in our lives. So it's like we're enlightenment, blessing, connection, and then evolution and consciousness, which creates all the changes that we see in all of our scientific experiments.
Wow, that's amazing. So
Yeah,
how can you take steps if everyone do this? Can everyone raise their or evolve their consciousness? Is it
everybody can,
possible?
yes.
Okay. What is one way they can start doing that?
So what I like to say is the only thing, the only prerequisite, right? We're not talking about a trick or a practice, though I'm not, against anybody not
Hmm.
doing any tricks or practices. But what really actually gives the outcome of all tricks and practices is the consciousness that's operating behind it. It's not the actual practice that delivers outcome. When you meditate, it's not the practice of meditation. You have people who've been meditating for decades and give up because it doesn't do anything for them, right? So it's the consciousness behind it that actually delivers something. And this is not something that's within our effort per se, because
Hmm.
it's not like a practice that we are able to do that allows us to harness more consciousness. What actually allows us to harness more consciousness, to evolve our consciousness, is a state of purity and innocence. And I'm not talking about like moral purity. I'm talking about purity as in a state in consciousness where we are conducive to the way life operates instead of against it. Because consciousness has one primary function, which is to organize and evolve. That's how it evolves, right? Is it organizes everything within a living system, and eventually it propels that system to like higher dimensions or higher states
Hmm.
of being, right? So organization is essential for that to happen. We could call that organized state a state of purity. And so what that means is that we are implementing higher consciousness in action, in our thoughts and our behaviors, in whatever we do. We're not working against the organizing principles of consciousness, we're working with it. Even in our emotions, our thoughts, our feelings, all of these things, we're working with God, not against God, so to speak. And so this state of purity and innocence, that's the embodiment of that, is having complete reliance and understanding that it's not our efforts that makes anything happen, because we see nature, all the things that are within our control, none of them are. Everything that's within our control is a complete illusion. It's a program from the nature of consciousness itself. So the best thing that we can do is follow what I like to call the divine principles and fundamentals, which is just, higher consciousness in action. It's just the way God operates. It's the fact that we exist not because of our own doing. We're not self-created. We're not self-generated. We're created by something outside of ourselves. It's also part of ourselves, right? But we're not separate from that, so to speak. We're not something that we created. We're a part of something that created us, and we're a
Hmm.
part of that. So It's kind of like the same thing as saying, if you die, that means, all of life dies with you. No, life continues on. There's other life forms that continue living even if you don't, right? The sun will continue to rise and set even if you don't. There's a truth and a fundamental existence in a way that life operates that works outside of you, beyond you. And if you can work with that, you can actually harness more of that life force into your life and promote your own evolution. If you work against that, then it's the one thing that drains your life force, that disorganizes your state of being. In that lower state of consciousness, that's where all problems exist. So we can say that it's maintaining a state of purity and innocence. And from that state, all these good characters exist. From higher states of consciousness, that's where you see the characters. It's not about trying to make these characters happen. These characters happen on their own in a more evolved state of consciousness. We're talking about empathy, caring, sacrifice, love, like those qualities that we all revere. Right. Like when you try hard, you can't make love happen. It's not a practice that can make love happen. It's not a technique. It just happens as a state of being. And so, in the same way, it's like from higher states of consciousness, those characters just exist within that program of higher states of consciousness. Lower states of consciousness, you have things like, mental health problems. You have, all the problems we see, poor quality health. We see things like people exhibit characters like selfishness, and, they want to hurt others or betray others. They're just working against nature instead of with it to promote
Mm.
life, to promote that life force in their own lives as well. But what I like to say is for anybody that finds that difficult, and though that is a natural progression and evolution, right? When you have a connection to somebody who's established already, right? Then you have like I said, a surrogate. You have somebody that can help kind of speed up that process, who can speed it up multifold. That's what I had in my life, because I had these experiences from childhood of like a direct connection with the divine. I would experience like states of samadhi, ecstasy, and bliss, where I felt my consciousness was absorbed into what I called God. And so for me, enlightenment, I didn't know what that was. I just knew it was being close to God. And so I wanted that. I just wanted to be as close to God as possible, because God was just this state of peace, of beauty, of perfection. It just, and it allowed this ecstasy, this bliss to just permeate my entire being. And it was outside of the context of any religion. I grew up Christian primarily, and my mother tried all these different modalities as well. So I was involved in a lot of things. But what I experienced, I never read about it anywhere. Not really. At that day and age, I never really understood it in the context of spirituality or religion. For me, it was just a natural experience. So that was my drive to kind of bring that experience back to me. And so I lived with the highest level of ethics and morality. I lived, I like to say I always was like a child at heart. There was always this trust in divine, this trust. I had this incredible intuition as a result. I meditated, I prayed, I did all of those things for, you know, uh, 2 decades. I met my husband when I was 20 years old. And so even at my conception, my inception, you could say that's when my path started, because that was when these experiences started. And even though I did everything within my power, right, I was able to maintain that connection to that degree where I still had those experiences, but I still felt limited. I still suffered from mental health problems. I still suffered from anxiety and depression. I still suffered from, poor quality sleep, menstrual health problems. All those things still persisted, even though I felt this inherent connection. I had these incredible experiences myself. It wasn't enough to make all of those things dissolve or eradicate them entirely. And it wasn't until I met my husband, right, at 20 years of age, that I experienced the power of what happens when you have that kind of help in your life. That changed my life entirely. What took 20 years of my life, whatever happened those 20 years to make those experiences happen, he was able to do with one blessing. It's kind of like that kind of effect, that kind of rapid progression. So it's not saying that we need a guru. Otherwise, we can't evolve and progress. But if we're finding it difficult, or if we're finding our progress not as fast as we want it to be, if we want to go faster, or we're struggling with problems that we can't quite do on our own, then it really helps to have somebody who can help us along that path, who can help facilitate and speed up that process. So we like to say, we're here to provide that. We have membership programs and things. We're actually doing this for people. We have so many testimonials with people, all of them experiencing incredible miracles that they've never found anywhere else. I have so many testimonies I could share with you. One of them is my own personal assistant. She's sitting
Hmm.
right here with me. But like she tried everything as well. She tried, conventional models. She tried alternative and complementary. She did everything as well. Meditation. She didn't even believe in God before. And this, after this blessing, it just completely changed her belief. She finally believed in God, and her whole life changed. I can go into more details about her testimony if you want, but
Yeah,
we have
sure.
so many of them.
Of course. Yeah, you can share more.
So her story, her background, right? And this is, we've even seen, so we have several clinical trials as well, which I'd love to share with you about, because it's so significant, the data we've seen. It's never been done before in a clinical
Mhm.
trial. But like, what really gets people, because all of the science, it's kind of hard to connect to things scientifically. We like to
Mhm.
connect to things through testimonial,
Mhm.
through experience, emotion, those types of things. And her story is really powerful because like I said, she didn't believe in God before. She didn't believe in any of this, and she suffered greatly uh, without any proper answers or solutions. What happened was, she had a disease called Crohn's disease. Are you
Mhm.
familiar?
Yes.
Right. So, very, severe autoimmune, problem, huge inflammation, and it comes with different levels of severity. Hers was so severe. Hers was on like the extreme side of the
Mhm.
spectrum. And hers was so severe that at the age of 19, she had her colon removed to save her life, right? She would be in and out of the hospital constantly with infections and problems. She was on morphine. She was on, all these different drugs and steroids and, things to help regulate her inflammation. None of them worked.
Mhm.
None of them were effective. And, that she was constantly getting surgeries for infections, on antibiotics, all these different things. And, modern medicine had no answer for her. Even her own father was a medical doctor. So she had all the attention she
Mhm.
could from, modern medicine and what was available for her. And nothing was able to solve, this huge suffering that she had. She was living with extreme chronic pain. She would be in the hospital, screaming with pain. That's how severe it was. Because her colon was removed, right? So she was missing a very important vital organ that, is like
Mhm.
important for nutritional absorption, and at the same time is like, holds, your stool. And
Mhm.
so as a result, there's nothing to hold it. So she needs to use the bathroom urgently. Whenever she needs to go, she needs to go. So you can imagine the anxiety of not knowing if you can make it to the bathroom, not knowing where the closest bathroom is at all times, traveling, being anywhere, right? The social, repercussions and consequences of that as well. And she was using the bathroom maybe like 25, 30 times a day. And
Wow.
so it was not life. And then you're also missing a part of your um, microbiome, which produces a lot of neurotransmitters, which gives
Mhm.
you those feelings of, happiness and peace and contentment and all those things that make you feel good. So a huge number of neurotransmitters were gone, right? So as a result, she was suffering from huge extreme depression and anxiety. She was suffering by all means, and by a friend, somebody who had already known Guruji at that time, who was already with him and had her own experiences of incredible miracles in her life. She had been with him for like, maybe 7 years at that point. And so she was like, I see what you're struggling with. I see what you're going through. I have someone that's changed my life and can probably help you. So why don't you just try it out, right? Why don't you just see what's possible?
Mhm.
And so she, just tried it out, hoping that something would happen. And after the blessing, just I don't even know how many blessings it took, but she's been with us for like 6 years now. Within those period of 6 years, right? She has not been to the hospital once. She has not had a single infection. She is off all medication. She no longer has the symptoms of Crohn's in her life. She's able to eat all different types of foods, everything. She uses the bathroom maybe 3 to 5 times a day now instead of 30 times a day. She's happy for the first time in her life. And this is not one person's story. This is across the board. We've, over 300,000 people have actually received this blessing. And of that, we've had like, hundreds upon hundreds of testimonials from people reporting these incredible miracles in their life. When they're all public. That's why I do what I do and why Guruji, my husband, does what he does, because this is life-changing for people. This is
Mm.
giving people life, and it's touching every time we see it, because it's like, who wants to live with pain? Who wants to live with this kind of misery? It's like, if there's an answer for it, then it's like, that's that's the purpose of life, is to be happy, is to be free from pain, to be free from illness, to be free from all of these things that are so prevalent now.
Mm.
And I'm happy that we're able to do that for people.
That's amazing. Now, where can people go to learn more about this?
Everything's on our website, divineconnection.org. We have all our memberships are that it's a nonprofit. So like everything, whenever people sign up for a membership, they get access, they get the blessings, they get access to like, our workshops and all those different things. But all the money really goes to helping, fund this mission, and to really help us, move things forward, and to help us, go on industry level. And so we have our mailing list, people can join that. We also have all of our scientific research. It's all completely, public information. It's all transparent and available on our website, divineconnection.org. It's available in over 3,000 universities in over 100 countries. So people can truly go anywhere, almost any university library, even like Harvard, Stanford, Cambridge, Oxford, all those places, and they can see our publications there. We have over 670 peer-reviewed science publications. And all of our clinical trials are published too. We're talking about like placebo, double-blinded, clinical trials, randomized clinical trials, which is like the gold standard of
Mhm.
clinical trials. And we've shown unprecedented outcomes. We've been able to influence neurotransmitters, hormones, nutrient absorption. We've improved the clotho protein by nearly 685%, which even by the best methodologies, drugs, and therapies available, can't even improve by more than marginally. That's the best we've been able to do for the clotho protein. And the clotho protein is indicative of anti-aging. It's the length, the longevity of your life. The more clotho you have, the more life you have. And we've been able to see, instead of marginal improvements, nearly 700% improvement, right? This cannot be influenced by psychology. So what we're seeing is real. What we're seeing, these people who are part of this clinical trial, they had severe mental and emotional health problems, and suffering from poor relationships, finances, poor quality health, exhaustion, chronic fatigue, ADD, ADHD, PTSD, suicidal tendencies, depression. Every single participant, all of their mental and emotional health problems, all of their problems from those lists, completely resolved by the end of the clinical trial after 180 days. So this is all published data. People can go anywhere to read it. But, if you want easy access, our website, divineconnection.org, you can read more about it. And so we have a special offer for everybody who's listening to this podcast. If they go to divineconnection.org/when spirit talks, they can actually try this blessing out from either, myself or Guruji, my husband. They can receive 2 blessings from either him or myself, or both if they want, for a huge discounted offer, and just experience the benefits for themselves and see what it has to offer. So
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. It's so incredible and life-changing, it sounds like, for so many. So thank you for sharing that with us.
I mean, thank you for providing this platform for me to have the opportunity to share it. I love the work you're doing, and I'm very grateful, Stephanie. Thank you for having